Hi guys, my name is Megan and today I've got some dark queer books for you. Alright, so today we're talking all about some of my favorite darker queer books. So these are dark as in a little bit of dark romance, dark academia, supervillains, magic, all sorts of fun things. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Alright, so the first one I'd like to recommend is going to be one of the OGs, favorite of mine, and it's getting a third book soon, hopefully this year, maybe sometime early next year. But it's like the one that caught my attention and kind of maybe set me on this path of like dark romance books that I'm currently like really interested in, and that's going to be Vicious. This is one of the best like supervillain, superhero origin stories. So this is following Victor and Eli, who start out as college roommates, and they're both into science, and they're both brilliant and arrogant and ambitious, and they recognize that in each other. Something comes up when their research studies of these people having near-death experiences and gaining these superpowers or extraordinary abilities, and they decide to give that a test and see if it actually works. They both end up having near-death experiences and developing superpowers, and it becomes a very long game of hating each other and wanting to kill the other, and it's one of the best supervillain stories ever. And Victor is actually asexual, so the amount of pent-up rage that Victor has for Eli, it's one of the best books I've ever read, and it's one that I think y'all should read, and it's so good. Next up, I'd like to recommend a more recent favorite, and that's going to be the Necessary Evil series. This first one is Unhinged. This is following the Mulvaney family, and the Mulvaneys, the children are all adopted, and they are all psychopaths, and they've all been adopted by Thomas Mulvaney, who is a billionaire, but also he's been running a very long scientific experiment to see if he can tame these psychopaths into doing vigilante-style justice instead of just killing indiscriminately. And each of the books is following one of his kids as they are, tasked with a certain person to murder, and they kind of stumble upon somebody that they just like connect with, and like that's their person, and like they kind of fall in love, even though, you don't really fall in love because they're psychopaths. This book series is a lot fluffier than you would expect, but also it gets really dark really fast, especially in this first book. Like, definitely check all the trigger warnings for all of these books because it gets dark. But also, you would never expect a serial killer psychopath to be fluffy and sweet and love their person. Next up, I have another favorite, and that's going to be the Foxhole Court and the rest of the All for the Game series. I talked about this book in so much depth. I think I have a full book review for this series. I think I'll leave that up in the corner if I can find it. This is following Neil Jostin, and he has been on the run for years from his mob boss enforcer father who is out to kill him. He gets drafted into the Palmetto State Exy team, which Exy is a made-up sport. It's kind of a crossover between hockey, lacrosse, and soccer, I think. Anyway, it's following Neil as he is struggling with the fact that he wants to play Exy with all of his heart, and that's really the only thing he wants to do before he knows he's gonna die, and before, his life catches up with him. He finds somebody on this team that he knew when he was a kid who also happens to be connected to the Japanese mob, which Neil's father works for. It's complicated, it's messy, it's sports and mafia drama, and the amount of sports-related drama in this is so fantastic, but also, like, Neil just wants to play sports before he dies. That's it. And Neil is demisexual, and he does not care about anything but his favorite sport and math. Anyway, this book series gets real dark, real fast, so please check all the trigger warnings before diving into the series. Next up, I have the Scapegracers, which this is one of my favorite YA witchy girl gang books. This is following a bunch of queer girls who are throwing a party, and they're like the popular girls, and Sideways Pike, who is our main character, is like there to do some magic for them because Sideways can do magic, and something goes wrong, and these girls decide to form a coven and help Sideways get a girlfriend, but also there's so much magical shenanigans going on, and it gets really dark really fast for a YA book, and honestly it's one of the best girl gang books I've ever read, especially for this gang of witchy girls who just want to do magic. And then the last book I'd like to recommend is going to be one of my absolute favorites from, was it 2023? It feels like so long ago that I read this book, but it's one of my absolute favorite books, and that is The Summer Sons. There's a lot going on in this book. So this is following Andrew, as he's dealing with the death of his best friend / maybe a little bit more, Eddie. Andrew is finally going to the house that Eddie had bought for them for when they were going to go to graduate school together, because it's finally time for Andrew to start going back to school. But he also is there to deal with the remainder of Eddie's things, and Andrew starts seeing Eddie's ghosts everywhere, like the bones of his best friend reaching out and trying to strangle him, and like it's a mess of magic and queer longing and really, really dark things. It's a dark academia at its best. It's going to college and studying folklore and figuring out that ghosts are real and that he has this power to see them. It's also fast cars, drinking, drugs. Andrew figuring out that he's gay and figuring out that there's just something off about everything, and maybe his best friend was murdered instead of taking his own life. It's one of the best books I've ever read. It's one that I would highly recommend. Just check the trigger warnings before diving into this, because it does deal with the suicide of a best friend, but also maybe the murder of a best friend, and it's just one of the best queer or dark queer books that I've ever read. So do you guys have a favorite dark queer book? Let me know down below. Also, if you have any recommendations for ones you think I might like, let me know. If you guys like this video, don't forget the like button. If you haven't already but would like to, go and hit the subscribe button. And if you'd like to follow me on social media for more bookish stuff, check out the links down below. Alrighty, bye guys.